To follow your dreams sometimes takes great sacrifice. So often we never set foot on the path to realize those dreams, and this was the case for our guest on today's show. Assalamu alaikum, you're watching An Nur the Light. We got to find out how Faizal made his dream come true.
The saying, one man's junk is another man's treasure, has never been more true under the expert hands of Faizal Achmat. He's been making and selling high-quality furniture from recycled materials. As a former architect, Faizal uses his creative thinking and penchant for design to conceptualize and manufacture unique pieces for everyday use.
Stemming from an architectural background in architectural studies, I found that my interest lied in pure design, industrial design specifically. That would be ergonomics, furniture design, amongst others. And I thought that with my experience and my knowledge over the years and my interaction with various wood suppliers, manufacturers, other furniture designers and manufacturers, I have the ability to produce these shabby chic items as what I call it. And through trial and error, experimenting here and there, it's been successful.
Faizal credits his father's innate artistic talent as a huge influence on his career choice. Although a trained architect, his love of making things won over, and he has not looked back since, turning a hobby into a business.
My architectural studies entailed freehand sketches, conceptualizing, visualizing end results, managing that whole process. And I find it to a great advantage when I need to sit down and conceptualize where I don't have a picture to work from. It's been a tremendous help in that way.
He started out one piece at a time, designing for friends and family at first before landing his first major client.
I was just browsing, looking for something on Gumtree, and I saw a piece of his that was advertised there. So I had a look and I thought, wow, this is, it was really amazing. So I ordered something from him, and it was just a little thing, a teaspoon holder that went on the wall. And he came and he delivered it and he installed it for me, which I thought was so sweet. I mean, that was such a nice touch. And then I asked him if he could make a unit for my lounge. And he said, absolutely. And he sketched it all beautifully and he made it, and it was amazing. So then I got hooked, and I kept on ordering more and more things from him. I love his work. I love his sensibility.
Robin was so impressed by his work that she did an article on him for her wellness magazine. Faizal got a lot more calls and his business took off. Robin also discovered Faizal's architectural side when she asked his help in a renovation she was doing.
Well, since that first piece, I discovered that he's an architect, and I was renovating a cottage at the back of my house, and I asked him to take a look and to help me, and he completely overhauled my cottage and put in the most beautiful woodwork, and he made lovely cupboards and everything. So he helped me with that, and then he's made some desks for an office that I have, and yeah, he's just made more and more beautiful things for me.
Faizal spends hours scouring junkyards to find the right materials. Some may be tarnished and tainted, but it's filled with character and is of great use for turning into his signature shabby chic wooden furniture pieces.
I get my materials from various builders' yards, which makes it a bit easier for me walking in and selecting what my requirements are, rather than walking into a hardware store where you're forced to take certain lengths, etc. And I can be I can be more specific, and I could then obtain the result I want. For me, walking into a builder's yard, I get this sense of creativity. I look at various types of available materials that most people have discarded or don't find an interest anymore. I find that very interesting, and I've always used that throughout the purpose of my work, in terms of making something purposeful, even more purposeful, and attractive at the same time, using my signature finish.
For Faizal, the whole journey from design to concept to creation is incredibly fulfilling. He's been able to turn his dream of making things into reality. His strong work ethic and his desire to go above and beyond is what make him stand out from so many others. The future for this entrepreneur looks bright.
Every month, Maulana Bham keeps us well informed with the answers he delivers simply yet insightfully. He's standing by with this week's Q&A.
نحمد ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Beginning by praising the Almighty for the many favors Allah has bestowed upon us. Salutations be upon the prophets and the messengers of the Almighty, all of them, and including and especially our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those who follow them in righteousness and guidance. Today we are looking upon, given the fact that we are very close to Heritage Days, and someone had asked a very pertinent question, and that is, can Muslims participate in South African celebrations? Now, of course, we have different days in the South African calendar which deals with specific events that have taken place in the past. For example, 27th April, we got Freedom Day, and then afterwards you got 24th September, you got Heritage Days. Now, bear in mind that these aspects are not necessarily wrong in terms of the concept. In terms of the concept, there is nothing wrong. To have freedom is a remarkable favor of the Almighty. And recall what Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he addressed the son of Amr ibn al-As, who had treated one of the non-Muslim subjects of Egypt, in which his father was a governor, in a manner that was not appropriate. And at that time, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu had rebuked him, saying, "Since when have you enslaved people? وَقَدْ وَلَدَتْهُ أُمُّهُ أَحْرَارًا." When their mothers gave birth to them as free people. So freedom is a remarkable favor of the Almighty. There is nothing wrong with achieving and fighting and striving for freedom, because it is according to Islamic norms. The same with regard to heritage. Now, of course, there will be different aspects with regard to heritage, and we won't go into all of those aspects, but heritage gives each and every person a sense of identity. So to strive with regard to your heritage, with your lineage, with your remarkable type of history, it gives you a sense of identity. And a person has identity, he has confidence to be able to deal with the challenges of life much more better than the one who is not confident, or he has problems with regard to his identity. Another important question: my child wants to study at a university which is not in our hometown. Is this permissible, and what should I take into consideration when choosing a place to study? Remind them wherever they are, they have the fear of Almighty Allah, must be with them at all times, behave responsibly. The second aspect that we should keep in mind is to see that they have good friends. Al-mar'u ala dini khalili. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said a person is on the religion of his friends. If you want to see how a person will conduct himself, see who are his friends. If his friends are good people, upright people, he himself will most probably fall into that category. The third aspect is to have a sense of conscience. Build within our children a sense of conscience all the time. And remember, what is conscience? Conscience is that small inner voice that does not speak your language. So even if the temptation wants to pull you in one direction, conscience will say, no, I'm not supposed to do that which is incorrect. And that conscience, build and inculcate conscience within our children. Lastly, I would say, constantly advise, keep in touch, phone, and tell our children, no matter where you are, remember the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we keep these aspects in mind, inshallah, they staying in any university, wherever they go, will be fruitful and productive. May Allah Ta'ala always keep our children and our youth protected within the laws of the Almighty Allah with good values. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Fees Must Fall became a global phenomenon, and we took a look into its impact and the results that came from it.
The Fees Must Fall protest plunged universities across South Africa into a crisis. At its heart was the right to free education for all. It became one of post-apartheid's biggest protests, and while things may have died down, important questions remain unanswered.
Look, my view is that, firstly, I think the students have a legitimate demand. I don't think it's feasible or desirable in the short to medium term. As a long-term goal, I don't think anybody could argue against. In the same way, we would want free healthcare, free housing, and so forth. But we're not there yet as a society. I think the problem is the way in which it's been polarized. The students are not willing to engage. I mean, they have a demand. They're not willing to sit down and talk. The students raised objections. They didn't want the chair of the universities, Adam Habib, to speak. They didn't want the Minister of Higher Education to speak. Now, if that's the case, you can't engage.
Legitimate concerns became political footballs as no common ground could be found between students and authority. Many universities saw destruction and vandalism, which severely impacted on negotiations.
What the students also have to understand is that how you conduct a struggle is also important. When you try and burn infrastructure, when you are violent, when you attack individuals, that's not legitimate protest by any means. And there's a romanticization of violence that I find abhorrent. And I think that people must be held accountable for legitimizing and justifying violence. I think that's just unacceptable. Because how do you claim truly to be in support of free education when you're burning down university libraries? That is just unacceptable behavior. And those that actually are caught, they should be severely penalized by the justice system.
South African universities are renowned for their quality education, but escalating costs and shrinking subsidies could impact severely on this. As tuition and admission fees increase, so too does affordability for students.
The reason universities increase fees is not because they're profit-making institutions, is because the state subsidy has not been sufficient to meet their costs. So the fallback is increased fees. And that's why fees go over and above what may be the inflation rate. Higher education is more costly than what normally constitutes inflation, because they import books, laboratory equipment, all comes from outside, so there are costs involved with that. And then the state subsidy is not sufficient, so something has to give. So either you compromise quality, which is a real concern, or you increase fees to keep up your existing operations.
Over the course of the past 10 years, there's been a steady increase in the establishment of more private universities. This has resulted in a bit of healthy competition between public and private as to which is better.
Look, I think if you want to give your child a high-quality education, the public universities are the place to go. This is not to suggest that private institutions don't offer high-quality education, but they do so within a very limited range.
At the moment, there isn't sufficient numbers of private universities, and none of them have the quality of the top public institutions in the country. If you simply had to do, I'm skeptical of rankings, but even if you had to do the rankings, all of the top universities in South Africa will be public universities. They're not private universities. Most of the private universities are largely teaching institutions.
The challenge at public universities is that you have bigger numbers, and that doesn't necessarily guarantee success. In a private institution like ours, you are guaranteed a quality education and responsiveness to market dynamics. So we are small and we are agile. If there's anything that is out there that's in the market that has to be in the content, we don't have the burden of big organizational structures to make the change.
Many private universities offer subject-based education, and its appeal is growing amongst parents as they seek alternatives for their children's education.
What we have seen with the student numbers is that our students don't come necessarily from the well-off families. It's parents that are making a conscious choice to say, it is not only about a public university where a student can get an opportunity to make a difference in life. Let's partner with someone that is aligned to industries. Let's partner with someone that's offering the #1 MBA in South Africa, as we got the results from the PMR Africa survey. Employers are saying, you are the #1 private MBA provider. And for a parent, that is a stamp of quality, that is a stamp of the fact that my child will go through an education that increases their chance of getting a job out there.
Education remains the best path out of poverty. However, the high costs of it are going to place severe restrictions on those who can't afford it.
We haven't reached a position where we could say that the South African institution is in crisis. But we can say that the fundamental issues that fees must fall raised has to be addressed. Are we looking? We have to start increasing state subsidy to the universities. We have to find a resolution around the issue of fees. One way or the other, we need to make a decision in this regard. We have to start getting students recognizing that levels of instability is not in anyone's interest, including their own. Because if these universities go down, then their degrees, the quality of the degrees, will suffer.
I don't think it's a real concern at the moment, at least from where I'm sitting. It could become a concern, but whether you can have a large private, the privates are also very strictly regulated in this country, unlike other parts of the continent. So I don't think it's a major threat, if you want, or competition to the public institutions currently.
It is now up to the role players to find common ground as well as practical solutions to this legitimate concern of quality, fee-free education. Our youth are this country's most valuable asset, and their success becomes South Africa's success.
Before you head out for the holidays, or you're just looking for a good place to holiday in, please log on to YouTube, where you will be able to find past episodes that will inspire you. We got to know the gardens in Cape Town's CBD a little better.
The Springbok Rugby Museum pays tribute to South Africa's favourite sport, rugby. Its location at the V&A waterfront has been strategic to gain maximum exposure from the passing crowd. It is an experience from the moment one sets foot in it.
When you enter the museum, the first thing that will strike you is this noisiness, because rugby stadiums are noisy places. The moment you cross our threshold, you will enter into the rugby tunnel. So you become immediately part of the action. We are open every day, 7 days a week, from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. The only day in the year that we are closed is on Christmas Day.
The history of rugby is often controversial, as it was seen as a white man's sport, but black clubs have been involved in the game since its very beginning. Attempts are made to address this misconception, however.
What we have captured are items from our glorious and illustrious past, significant programs, the jerseys that tells the story of our game, the many trophies that is testimony to the effort of so many administrators and players in communities wide and far, but it also gives you a deep insight into the psyche of South Africa as a country.
For any rugby-loving person, this museum is a necessary pilgrimage, but for others, it gives a good background to the game, its players, administrators, as well as the loyal fans. In a quaint little corner of Cape Town, a new gastronomic experience awaits the hungry visitor. There aren't many halal fine dining restaurants, and patrons have been licking their lips ever since it's opened its doors.
Gia is a fine dining restaurant, or midway between fine dining and casual. The name itself stands for 4 of my nieces who loves food. A lot of our clients was asking us to do a restaurant where they could come out and experience the food that we did at events. And fortunately, the owner of the business, Mr. Ali Hamid, he's come forward, and this is how we've given birth to Gia. So I basically head up and run the business on his behalf.
A whole new world of culinary possibility awaits, and locals are familiar with Shamshad's cooking through some of his earlier restaurants. The difference can, however, be found in the style of food that is being created.
Everything that we do here is gourmet. The taste is unique and different. There isn't anybody out there that's got the same kind of taste that we have. So it's been specifically developed for our target market, and taking international and national trends into account in plate ups, in tastes. So we're different, we're unique, we're changing all the time. Again, we like to listen to what people are saying. If we ever thought that we've arrived, we've lost the plot. So we hear about listening to our clients, what they want, but also we do continuous research to ensure we stay abreast of trends.
One thing is for certain, the food tastes as good as it looks, and patrons will be licking their lips long after the meal has been digested. In the heart of bustling Cape Town and on the slopes of Table Mountain is a small green belt that has been rejuvenated and turned into a profitable produce farm. It is tended to by both volunteers and employees who see to the day-to-day running of the site and business.
The Oranjezig City Farm, it's a community farming project, started at the end of 2011 on a piece of land that used to be an old bowling green, but 350 odd years ago it was also a farm, the biggest one in the Upper Table Bay Valley at the time, providing fresh produce for the ships that were passing by and also for the growing Cape Colony.
Visitors to the farm are encouraged to get their hands dirty and help in the maintenance as well as harvesting of the fruit and vegetables found here. It's an enriching experience for anyone who wants to test their green fingers.
The experience is totally unique if you consider the location on the edge of one of the most beautiful cities in the world, Table Mountain as your backdrop, the city in the distance. It is an absolutely uplifting experience, not only for adults, but to see children's faces when they pull carrots out of the ground or beetroot. It's just absolutely priceless.
The city farm is a welcome break from the bustling metropolis that has become Cape Town, and everyone is welcome. There's even a market day where some of the produce is sold. It doesn't get any fresher than this.
That's it. Another fun-filled time spent with my favorite people doing what I love best and learning more about Muslims in South Africa. We're looking for new story ideas, so if you know of something interesting, please do get in touch. Kinna Mare Mukwanda, kire ari buheri bonana ngabe. Assalamu alaikum.